Good evening, and welcome to The Way Out Show. I'm your host, Dane McCarthy, broadcasting to you from FEMA Region 5, deep in the bowels of the United Police State of Amnesia. Today is December 21st, 2016, and I want to do a show a little bit different because I have discovered Tulsi Gabbard, along with thousands and thousands of other Americans and people around the world. Now, who is Tulsi Gabbard? Tulsi Gabbard is a congresswoman from Hawaii. She is the first the first Hindu in Congress. She was born in American Samoa. She is a Democrat, and she is being hailed as the ideal next presidential candidate for this country by thousands and thousands of people. And what I'm going to do for this special show is run clips back to back for almost the entire hour. And you will see when you start listening to what she has to say that you will see that she is something special in America, and she deserves a lot more attention than she's getting. Now, she's terrifying to some members of the establishment. She is anti-war, she is anti-establishment, her views are somewhat libertarian, others call her a true progressive, others say she's a conservative, but people from both sides of the aisle, including libertarians, really are falling in love with her all over the place. And the mainstream media does not give her, at this point, a lot of attention. She's young. She's still only in her 30s. This woman is something else to see, and she is absolutely amazing and astonishing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run, as I said, the clips back to back, and these are taken from the internet. There are more clips out there from CNN, from various interviews, from RT, from Fox News, wherever I could find, whatever I could find out there, I've put it on the show for you to watch and enjoy, because she is truly a breath of fresh air in this country. Now, I also think, I like Trump. Trump has met with her, and I don't know if she's going to be chosen to be part of the cabinet or not. This would be different too, because here's a Democrat who may be on the Trump cabinet, maybe not, I don't know. She will probably stick as a representative of her state of Hawaii for the time being. And maybe she doesn't want to be on the Trump cabinet. Anyway, she met with Trump. So we'll see how that shakes out. But anyway, here are the clips back to back, so enjoy.
Elizabeth, what's coming up?
Well, coming up, she's not your typical politician. Kevin Cork tells us about a rising star in Congress who's riding high at home in Hawaii and on the Capitol. Kevin?
No question about that. Making waves on Capitol Hill and riding a few of them here in Hawaii. That story and more as we continue here on Fox News Channel on a beautiful Saturday in Honolulu. A relative newcomer on Capitol Hill, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, is already admired for her ability to work with both Republicans and Democrats, a rare ability on Capitol Hill. And she also happens to be one of the first female combat veterans to ever serve in the United States Congress. Kevin Cork joins us from Honolulu with her fascinating story. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Leland. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but rather where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. Now, obviously, those aren't my words. Those are the words of the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but they certainly seem to reflect the values of the woman you're about to meet. Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who is an Army captain with a true passion for people.
It's a very rejuvenating and refreshing experience that gives you a very clear perspective.
It's not every day you see a member of Congress on a surfboard, riding waves and truly at home in the water. But then again, Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard is no ordinary politician. She's arguably one of the most unique in American politics.
It is the most special place on the planet.
Hawaii may be her special place, but in Washington, Gabbard's already proven herself to be a special kind of politician. Engaging, 34 years young, with a 1,000,000-watt smile and potential to match. In less than 3 years on the Hill, she's earned a reputation as one of her party's rising stars. The first American Samoan elected to Congress. The first elected Hindu. A U.S. military combat veteran who's also the vice chair of her party's national committee. She's made headlines as an outspoken critic of the president, and did I mention she's also a Democrat?
I work for the people of Hawaii who gave me this responsibility, who gave me this job. I work for the American people, and I do my best every day to do what is in their best interest.
But for all her rock star status, Gabbard's seen as a rebel within her own party, someone who pulls no punches when it comes to speaking her mind, even if it raises eyebrows among fellow Democrats, like when she expressed frustration about her party's lack of presidential debates, seen by some critics as a means of protecting the candidacy of Hillary Clinton.
When we look at what's in the best interest of our country, which is how I think we should make all of our decisions, less dialogue does not help us.
An area where Gabbard also thinks there should be much more dialogue is over what to do about ISIS in Syria. She's criticized the Obama administration's strategy of attempting to topple dictator Bashar al-Assad as an unlawful use of power.
This is a war that I believe is illegal and counterproductive. It's illegal because Congress hasn't declared war against Syria, and it's counterproductive because it helps our enemy, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, these other groups, achieve their objective.
Worse, with so many competing interests in one war zone, the Army captain warned that an accidental entanglement with the Russians could lead to a nuclear catastrophe.
This will kick off a world war and potentially a nuclear war, given the fact that the United States and Russia are the two countries on this planet that are literally minutes away from pushing that button and launching a nuclear bomb.
She's even pushed back at Mr. Obama for his failure to speak candidly about Islamic extremism.
It doesn't take a military genius to understand that you have to know your enemy before you can defeat them. It's a big mistake to not clearly identify who your enemy is.
Gabbard says it's no mistake that she's outspoken. It's likely a byproduct of her upbringing, a homeschooled daughter of educators, including a father who was once a state lawmaker. Tulsi first ran for office at the age of 21, and she's been serving the people of her state in one capacity or another ever since.
Aloha is something that is universal and that we need more of, especially in Washington. If people would lead with aloha, lead with a heart of service, treating others truly with respect, sincerely, then I know that we could get so much more done.
A worthy goal for a true political rebel with a cause. Without question, Tulsi never wavered in her bearing throughout that entire interview, except when I asked her what it meant to be not just a role model for people in her state, but for so many girls all over the world. She actually took a moment and said simply, "It means a lot." And obviously it shows. Leland?
And a role model Congressman Gabbard is in so many ways. Kevin Cork, appreciate that and your hard work with the president on vacation. See you back here in Washington, sir.
Hey guys, it's Emma Bigling with TYT Politics. I hope that you're having a lovely day. I hope this connection's a little bit better than earlier on. I will just get right to it because I know I do all these long intros, but again, check out Jordan and Eric's videos, youtube.com/TYT Politics. Don't forget to subscribe, tell everyone in your family, and shake them until they do it. That's the way to go. Manipulate them, blackmail them into subscribing to TYT Politics. Actually, don't do any of those things. Oy, oy, oy. So, I wanted to discuss a story that I didn't really get to last week, but it actually was really bugging me and really irritating me because Tulsi Gabbard met with Donald Trump and was trying to advise him on not taking a neoconservative position in terms of foreign policy with Syria. For some reason, that bothers the Democrats, who are supposed to be the progressive party that don't want war. Let's read an article summarizing her meeting with Trump, and then I'll give you just a bunch of information about her policy on Syria. As you guys know, Tulsi Gabbard is a pretty staunch progressive. She's not Bernie Sanders on every single issue progressive. She has a military background, so she can sometimes be more anti-interventionist, more, in terms of refugees, a little more buttoned up than maybe some progressives would like. But overall, Tulsi Gabbard is one of my favorite politicians and one of the best people in Washington. She's shown immense bravery, both as a veteran and as someone who abandoned her position at the DNC to fight for what she thought was right. So, this is a summary of what happened in her meeting with Trump. So, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat from Hawaii, said she and President-elect Donald Trump had a frank conversation at Trump Tower on Monday, this was last week, about American policy abroad and the need to avoid escalations that could lead the nation into war. I felt it is important to take the opportunity to meet with the president-elect now before the drumbeats of war that neocons have been beating drag us into an escalation of the war to overthrow the Syrian government, Gabbard said in a statement. A former top official at the Democratic National Committee who resigned to campaign for Bernie Sanders, Gabbard, an Iraq War veteran, said she would not let her differences with Trump undermine America's national security. During his presidential campaign, Trump expressed skepticism about the neoconservative and interventionist line of thinking. However, then-candidate Trump's claims that he opposed the Iraq War are simply not true. After the meeting, Trump's former campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, offered praise for the Hawaii congressman and those like her who are pushing the Democratic Party to expand their base. Representative Gabbard went against her party quite boldly early on, and I think you are hearing people like Representative Tim Ryan also raising concerns, Conway said. Bernie Sanders today was also quoted as saying that they should stop identity politics in the Democratic Party. Whoa, he can call and we'll tell them how to do that and win. So I think there's a recognition that there's a big country, a massive amount of voters that feel disaffected from their party, the Democrats. Kellyanne Conway, someone who I don't agree with anything on policy-wise, but someone whose intelligence I respect. She's the person and one of the main reasons that Donald Trump got elected and is president-elect of the United States. She had an incredibly smart campaign strategy, and she was able to tame the beast that is Donald Trump. So, I find it so outrageous that anyone would have any problem with Tulsi Gabbard meeting with the president-elect to steer him in a more progressive direction. Why is that an issue for you? But that's because you want to play identity politics. That's the first reason. And the second reason is some of you guys maybe do want to go to war with Syria. I'll expand on Tulsi Gabbard's position because it's not black and white. So this is from The Guardian. At first glance, Gabbard, who is from Hawaii and is the first Hindu member of the U.S. Congress, seems like an unlikely counselor to Donald Trump. She resigned from the Democratic National Committee to back blah, blah, blah. You guys know that. So she credited Bernie Sanders with starting a movement of love and compassion, although by then Clinton's victory was certain. But the Iraq War, I don't know about that. But the Iraq War veteran has also expressed views that might appeal to Trump, criticizing Obama, condemning interventionist wars in Iraq and Libya, and taking a hard line on immigration. In 2014, she called for a rollback of the visa waiver program from Britain and other European countries with which she called Islamic extremist populations. In October of last year, she tweeted, Al-Qaeda attacked us on 9/11 and must be defeated. Obama won't bomb them in Syria. Putin did. Never forget 9/11. She was among the 47 Democrats who joined Republicans to pass a bill mandating a stronger screening process for refugees from Iraq and Syria coming into the U.S. So that's when I say it's not black and white. Her position is more nuanced. It's not just like gung-ho, anyone can come in to the U.S. Not that I'm saying that the other position is that, but she does have a little bit more buttoned up view of foreign policy, a little bit more conservative in terms of if refugees should be coming to the U.S. We could have a discussion with her, an open and honest discussion. I don't even see that really as that major of an issue in terms of the fact that she's not saying we should ban the refugees coming to the U.S. She just wants a stronger screening process. I don't know if I necessarily agree, but that's where her position is more nuanced, and I'm sure her background as someone in the military informs that position. But other than that, she's so on point. So I'm going to read you guys an article from The Nation, which really sums up her opinion on the intervention in Syria. The Nation, besides hiring Joan Walsh, has been one of the only progressive outlets to actually do some awesome journalism after Bernie Sanders was not the nominee, and a lot of other outlets that were semi-pro Bernie just kind of jumped the shark and were going full ho Clinton. So, of all the myths that passed for conventional wisdom in Washington in the late Obama years, perhaps one of the most intractable is the idea that the president has done nothing concerning Syria. According to Robert S. Ford, who served as a U.S. ambassador to Syria for 4 years, is now a senior fellow in the Middle East Institute, the Obama administration has followed a hands-off policy regarding Syria, claiming that the president and other senior administration officials have been reluctant to use the tools available to create pressure on the Syrian government. And last week, the New York Times reported that 51 mid-level State Department officials authored a dissent cable to Secretary John Kerry urging the United States to carry out military strikes against the government of President Bashar al-Assad. The Times noted further that Foggy Bottom's pinstripe dissidents have long chafed at the White House's refusal to be drawn into the conflict in Syria. Yet, far from refusing to be drawn into the conflict in Syria, the Obama administration has actively financed and trained so-called moderate Syrian rebels, who are in fact Salafist extremes in league with al-Qaeda, since 2013. The administration's parallel efforts, one by the CIA, followed by another run out of the Pentagon, has helped to destabilize the region, contribute to the refugee crisis, and, in targeting the sovereign government of Bashar al-Assad, help strengthen the geostrategic position of ISIS. The article continues. Efforts to halt the administration's illegal and counterproductive war for regime change in Syria have been led by Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. Last year, Gabbard, a two-tour Iraq war veteran, sponsored a bill that would cut off funding for what Gabbard called the administration's regime change war in Syria, Gabbard sponsored an amendment to the Defense Appropriations Act that would block funding for the so-called Syrian Train and Equip program. While the amendment garnered the support of 135 House members, including staunch conservatives like South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy and Michigan Congressman Justin Amash, and leading Democrats like Maryland Senate candidate Chris Van Hollen, it ultimately did not pass. And the amendment's defeat happened to coincide with the release of the State Department's dissenting cable calling for military strikes against Syria. Taken together, these are troubling developments because, as Gabbard correctly notes, should the regime change war succeed in overthrowing Assad, it will be ISIS and al-Qaeda who will step in and fill the vacuum. It is this prospect which would be strategic, tactical, and moral catastrophe that American policy should seek to avoid. Far from alleviating the humanitarian and refugee crisis, military action by the U.S. would only exacerbate them. And yes, the administration persists via the CIA's Train and Equip program in doing the bidding of our most odious allies, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, by putting pressure on Assad to leave the scene. At a speech this weekend at the People's Summit in Chicago, Gabbard took direct aim at the 51 State Department's dissidents. According to Gabbard, this is a quote, "Too many people have not learned from the past. They've learned nothing from Iraq and that overthrow of Saddam Hussein. They've learned nothing from overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya and the chaos that ensued as a result." Gabbard said to The Nation on Monday, "Escalating the war to overthrow Assad will make things even worse. It will cause more suffering and chaos and strengthen ISIS and al-Qaeda to the point where they will be able to take over all of Syria. That result would, according to Gabbard, mean disaster, including a genocide against religious minorities, secularists, atheists, and anyone who refuses to accept extremist Wahhabi theology. The refugee crisis would increase exponentially, and it could lead to a direct confrontation with Russia." So, that is genius. She gets it. She understands the problems with intervention, but the rest of the neoliberals are like, no, 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 we want war. We want to overthrow Assad. I understand that, yes, Assad is a psycho dictator, but have we learned nothing from Iraq? Have we learned nothing from Iraq? And you know what? They just want to follow in Hillary Clinton's footsteps. Oh, the drumbeats of war. Let's walk along to it. And Tulsi Gabbard, how dare you attempt to save American lives by going meeting with the Republican president? No, we're supposed to pout in a corner and pretend, oh, we're going to oppose everything he does for right now, or oh, we shouldn't work with him. I don't give a damn if you work with him if the result is saving American lives. Who cares? But you just want to toe the party line. So all these reports come out. Oh, the corporate Democrats, the Democratic Party, they're not pleased with Tulsi Gabbard. Well, you know what? She's pretty used to that because she spat in your face, rightfully so, when you rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders for your unbelievably corrupt candidate. A candidate who we knew had a significantly high chance of losing to Donald Trump. And look what happened. So excuse me if we don't listen to you and your war drumbeats anymore. And we're going to listen to someone who actually has principles and is deciding to meet with the president elect to prevent us from causing further disaster internationally and saving lives, both American lives and lives in the Middle East. Forgive me if we're not going to listen to your advice anymore. So, listen to some of the headlines. This is from the Washington Post. This is, you know, if she was going to be either Secretary of State or the UN ambassador, but it's already been filled by Nikki Haley, so it's a moot point. I know this story's a little old. But this is one headline. Why Tulsi Gabbard can't represent America at the United Nations, from the Washington Post. Here's another. This one's disgusting. Democratic representative from the Daily Beast. Democratic Representative Tulsi Gabbard goes to Trump Tower to defend Assad. This is from Alternet. Why did progressive Democrat Tulsi Gabbard meet with Trump for a potential role in his administration? And then beneath it, Gabbard's meeting is puzzling to say the least. Is it? Is it puzzling? Doesn't seem really puzzling to me. She actually has principles. And here's Howard Dean. Listen to what he had to say about Tulsi Gabbard on Hardball. Oh, Chris Matthews, you're holding them accountable. Former DNC chairman and MSNBC contributor reacted, this is Howard Dean, reacted to Democratic Representative Tulsi Gabbard's meeting with President-elect Trump on Tuesday's broadcast of Hardball. She's an interesting person. And the people of Hawaii basically have her tabbed as an extremely ambitious with flexible principles, Dean told Chris Matthews. She was a lefty for Bernie. Now she's talking about running against Mazi Hirano, who's a left-wing or liberal senator from Hawaii. So who knows what this is about? Aren't you running to be the head of the DNC? Did you throw your little hat in the ring, Howard Dean? I appreciate what you did with the 50-state strategy, but be gone. If you don't see the value in Tulsi Gabbard, you don't know anything about the Democratic Party and where it needs to go. You know who probably is for this kind of reaching across the aisle that you're supposed to be for is Keith Ellison and other progressives within the party. So, don't give me this. She's an interesting person and extremely ambitious with flexible principles. That's not even a dog whistle to insult her. That's a human whistle. So, give me a break, Howard Dean. I'm done with you. I'm literally done with you. That should be my tagline for these videos. I don't even know why we're listening to Howard Dean anymore. So, establishment media, establishment Democrats, criticizing Tulsi Gabbard for not wanting us to go to war, that means you don't care anything about policy and principle. All you care is about the party line and wailing and whining because your horrible candidate lost to a potential fascist. But if he can be moved on this issue, that is a good thing, because people like us actually care about the results of policy, not just the party infighting. So when you say you're going to reach across the aisle, that's BS. It's only reaching across the aisle when you can enhance your corporate donors or your defense contracting donors in this case. She's actually reaching across the aisle. But now you don't care. God, I hope she runs for president in 2020 and just rubs it in your face. Pathetic. And just this also amuses me. To end on a lighter note, so now all of these conservative outlets are obsessed with Tulsi Gabbard. So the National Review headline is, "Meet the beautiful, beautiful," this is how you know it's a right-wing outlet because they focus on her appearance, "Meet the beautiful, tough young Democrat who's turning heads by challenging Obama's foreign policy." Thank you for adding the beautiful in there, because that makes sense. That's important for policy. But anyway, that was just a headline I found on the National Review to bookend this story where I yelled at you guys for like 20 minutes. So, anyway, I'm so pro Tulsi Gabbard. I'm so pro what she's doing. And the establishment can whine all she wants. But if she keeps us out of war and she convinces Trump not to listen to the John Boltons of the world, it's a win for America.
And Congresswoman, you've been a very outspoken member of Congress, of course, a great representative for the great state of Hawaii, and a good proponent to overspending. I want to talk a little bit about your legislation to stop arming terrorists, if we can. You have been very outspoken about the U.S.'s involvement with arming terrorist groups and providing funds. Can you tell us a little bit about what the legislation will do?
Sure. You know, this is something that I've worked on since the people of Hawaii elected me to come here and work for them here in Congress. And people might not be surprised to know that it is illegal for you or me or anyone else here in America to provide any type of support or assistance to terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS or those groups that are affiliated with them. If we broke this law, we would be thrown in jail. But what might surprise people and what really makes me angry and curdles my blood is that the U.S. government has been violating this law by directly using American taxpayer dollars to support allies, partners, people coordinating with and working with groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS by providing money and weapons and intelligence and other support in their fight to overthrow the Syrian government. I've introduced legislation to end this counterproductive, illegal regime change war. This bill seeks to stop the funding that is fueling that war, again, both by directly supporting these terrorist groups or the money that's being used to funnel weapons and other assistance through countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey, who are also working towards overthrowing this government for interests that serve them, but that do not serve the interests of the American people.
Representative, if I can ask you real quick, why do you suppose it's taken so long here for a legislation like this to come through? I mean, we've been funneling weapons and training and intelligence support to the Levant Front and Fursan al-Ha and Jabhat Fateh al-Shalom for quite a while now. And, of course, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, a big conversation piece for a lot of our military spending. And yet, here's this money being funneled to these support groups.
That's a great point, and you're exactly right. This is something that should have happened long ago. There's a lot of misinformation that's being thrown out there, and really it speaks back to this policy and this commitment that's been happening for far too long in our country towards continuing these counterproductive regime change wars. We saw this occur in Iraq, we saw this occur in Libya, and we are seeing this now playing out in Syria. In each of these examples, we have seen the results of this policy have been disastrous. The people in these countries have undergone far more suffering. We have seen far more loss of life. We are seeing now millions and millions of refugees coming out of Syria. We see failed states and chaos. And actually, we are seeing groups like Al-Qaeda, those who attacked us on 9/11, growing stronger
as a result of our nonsensical interventionist regime change policies, rather than actually weakening them, which was what we were supposed to do after 9/11. President Bush then said, we are going to go after those who perpetrated this horrific attack on the United States, and actually the exact opposite result has occurred here. And that's what I'm trying to put a stop to by introducing this bill. Let's stop using American taxpayer dollars to arm, support, and strengthen these terrorist groups. Instead, we can use those resources to do two things. One, to work with those like the Kurds who are on the ground in both Iraq and Syria to fight against terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and defeat them, and use those funds to invest in and rebuild our country here at home. In Hawaii, we have so many needs, infrastructure needs, education, healthcare access, and others. The same exists across the country. We've got to focus on using these resources to rebuild our country here at home.
Thank you, Congresswoman Gabbard, for representing the state of Hawaii and for being such a strong proponent of Hawaiian needs and, of course, civil rights. Thank you so much for talking with us this morning, and we appreciate your time.
Look forward to coming home. I'll be home tomorrow.
All right. Well, we'll have you back for Christmas. Aloha.
All right. Aloha.
A Hawaii lawmaker a possible contender for Trump's team?
Well, a spokeswoman for Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard tells us it just isn't so. The politician or veteran says she did meet with the president-elect today to discuss Syria and America's fight against terrorist groups.
And not about a possible job. That's according to Gabbard's spokeswoman. Still, that story is making national headlines as the Republican Trump reached out to the Democratic Gabbard to talk policy. Bridget Namata goes beyond the headlines. Bridget.
Dash, I've reached out to the Congresswoman, was told she wasn't available for an interview. A spokeswoman says Gabbard did not meet with President-elect Trump seeking a job, nor did he offer her one. In a lengthy statement, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard defended her decision to meet with the president-elect at Trump Tower in New York City on Monday. While the rules of political expediency would say I should have refused to meet with President-elect Trump, I never have and never will play politics with American and Syrian lives. She says Trump asked to meet and discuss current policies about Syria, but she says she won't hesitate to disagree with Trump. Gabbard says, I believe we can disagree, even strongly, but still come together on issues that matter to the American people and affect their daily lives. Trump met with several people today, like former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, many who were photographed leaving Trump Tower. Though Gabbard was never seen, senior Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway had this to say about the Hawaii Democrat.
A lot of common ground. I think they both understood the country very well. Tulsi Gabbard, Representative Gabbard, went against her party quite boldly early on. And I think that you're hearing people like Representative Tim Ryan of Ohio also raising concerns.
Political analyst Dr. John Hart says Gabbard and Trump see eye to eye on many things.
She has been associated with several foreign policy positions that are very similar to the ones that Donald Trump has had. I think she is against nation building. I think she would be against expansion of military in the Middle East without massive justification. These are things that President-elect Trump is going to be very comfortable with.
I also asked Dr. Hart about reports that Gabbard was being considered for a role on Trump's team.
Tulsi has been on Fox News. A lot of Republicans have viewed her favorably. She's viewed as a very independent Democrat.
Gabbard's spokesperson later clarified that the Congresswoman loves the job she has serving the people of Hawaii in Congress. Bridget Namata, KHON 2 News.
We're guided by the lessons of history and a desire to promote stability all over, and strength in our land. This destructive cycle of intervention and chaos must finally, folks, come to an end.
Welcome back to Lead. That was President-elect Donald Trump on Tuesday night vowing to scale back U.S. intervention overseas, all part of his America First policy. Joining me now to talk about this and more, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat of Hawaii, I guess you say. She serves on the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Jake. Always good to see you.
So let me ask you a question. Do you agree with Donald Trump's vision of America First when it comes to foreign policy?
I'm glad to hear him talking about ending our country's interventionist regime change war policies. As you know, this is something that I've been talking about for years, that we need to stop the destruction that's been caused by our country continuously getting involved in these counterproductive regime change wars that not only end up strengthening our enemy in groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, but they actually end up causing more suffering for the people in these countries where we are intervening, as in Syria now.
I know you feel that way about Syria and Libya and Iraq. Do you feel that way about Afghanistan?
Afghanistan is a little bit of a different situation,
Right, okay.
but yes, essentially.
You met with Donald Trump 2 weeks after he was elected. There was some speculation that he might offer you a cabinet position or some sort of position. Were you hoping to work in the Trump administration?
I love my job. The people of Hawaii chose to rehire me again in November, and I look forward to continuing to work for them. My goal in going there, in receiving the invitation to speak to President-elect Trump, was to speak specifically about the situation in Syria, the dangerous consequences of escalating the regime change war that the United States is fueling there, along with countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Turkey, escalating that through a so-called no-fly zone or safe zone, and urging him to end our regime change war there, to stop funding, both directly and indirectly, groups that are working with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and to stop funneling those dollars and weapons and other assistance through these other countries like Saudi Arabia, who are directly supporting these terrorist groups, who are supposed to be our enemy, who we're supposed to be fighting to defeat.
And tell me about the legislation. You have a bill that you introduced today that would address loopholes you say have allowed American taxpayer dollars to fund terror groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS in Syria. Are you really suggesting that the U.S. government is funding these terrorist groups?
I'm not only suggesting it. This is the reality that we're living in. And
not directly,
most
though.
Americans, you know, if you or I were to go and provide money, weapons, or support or whatever to a group like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, we would immediately be thrown in jail. However, the U.S. government has been providing money, weapons, intel assistance, and other types of support through the CIA directly to these groups that are working with and are affiliated with Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
So you're saying the CIA is giving money to groups in Syria, and those groups are working with al-Nusra and ISIS?
There have been numerous reports from the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal and other news outlets who have declared that these rebel groups have formed these battlefield alliances with Al-Qaeda, that essentially these Al-Qaeda groups are in charge of every single rebel group on the ground fighting in Syria to overthrow the Syrian government.
Now, the U.S. government says that they vet the groups that they give money to very, very closely, and that you're wrong. There are not alliances between groups that the American taxpayers fund and these other groups. Obviously, they all are fighting Assad.
I beg to differ. Evidence has shown time and time again that is not the case, that we are both directly and indirectly supporting these groups who are allied with, are partnered with Al-Qaeda and ISIS in working to overthrow the Syrian government of Assad. And we've also been providing that support through countries like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Qatar to do that.
Quickly before you go, I know that some of your colleagues, Democrats, have expressed concern about too many retired generals being in the Trump cabinet. You have the National Security Advisor, General Flynn, and then also he's talked about General Mattis and General Kelly at the Pentagon and Homeland Security. Do you share their concerns, or do you disagree?
I don't share their concerns. In fact, as a veteran and as someone who's still serving in the Hawaii Army National Guard, I find it pretty offensive for people to outright discriminate against veterans. Here you have generals who have literally spent their whole lives serving our country, putting service before self, putting their lives on the line to defend democracy, and yet people are criticizing them and discriminating against them, saying just because you served as a general previously, you are disqualified from serving in a high position of leadership in our government. These people arguably have put far more on the line and are far more deeply personally committed to upholding and protecting our democracy than their critics.
Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, thanks so much. Always good to see you.
Let's talk about this deal, this agreement that was worked out today between the United States and Russia to avoid some accidental head-on collision between fighter jets over Syria. The secrecy of this deal, they're not making it public. Does that concern you?
It doesn't. You know, I think that the Pentagon knows and understands how important it is to make sure that our troops are not put into harm's way and that we're not put into a situation where you have this accidental military conflict with Russia in the air. So I think making this deal with Russia to deconflict that is an important thing. But there's a bigger issue here that I'm concerned with, and that is the fact that the U.S. and the CIA are working to overthrow the Syrian government of Assad, while Russia, a longtime ally of Assad for decades now, is working to defend or uphold this Syrian government of Assad. And this puts us in a position of a possible direct head-to-head conflict with Russia as long as the U.S. and CIA continue down this path.
Well, how does the U.S. and Russia avoid that head-on contact? Because you're absolutely right. The U.S. wants to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. The Russians want to boost him and protect him together with the Iranians, their allies, the Lebanese Hezbollah group. They're trying to prop him up. So how do you avoid that potential collision?
Very simple. The U.S. and the CIA should stop this illegal and counterproductive war to overthrow the Syrian government of Assad and should stay focused on fighting against who our enemy is, the Islamic extremist groups. Because right now we're seeing why this is counterproductive. By working towards that end, by working towards overthrowing the Syrian government of Assad, we are not only strengthening our enemy, the Islamic extremists, who will walk in and take over all of the country of Syria. Right now they have about half of the country under their control, but it also puts us in that position of a potential direct head-to-head conflict with Russia, which brings us to the brink of a potential larger conflict of a World War III type situation.
Why do you say the U.S. effort to get rid of Bashar al-Assad's regime is counterproductive and illegal?
Well, first of all, there's not been a vote in Congress to authorize the use of force, to authorize a war to overthrow a sovereign government. For as long as I've been there, that hasn't happened. It didn't happen before I got there. So the American people haven't had a choice to speak their voice, to approve or disapprove such a war. Therefore, it's illegal. Secondly, it is counterproductive because right now, U.S. arms are getting into the hands of our enemy, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, these other groups, Islamic extremist groups who are our sworn enemy. These are groups who attacked us on 9/11 and who supposedly we're trying to defeat, yet at the same time supporting them with these arms to overthrow this Syrian government.
So you don't even want the U.S. to provide weapons or arms to these anti-Bashar al-Assad rebels?
I don't want the U.S. government to provide weapons to Al-Qaeda, to Islamic extremists, to our enemy. I think it's a very simple concept in my mind that you can't defeat your enemy if you're arming them and helping them at the same time. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Have you told this to officials at the White House?
We've had conversations, both in hearings and otherwise, and I think it's important for the American people to stand up and say, look, we don't want to go and do what happened in Iraq with Saddam Hussein, do what happened in Libya with Gaddafi, because these are countries that have fallen into chaos and that have been taken over by these terrorists because of the actions that the United States and others took.
You tweeted recently, any candidate who supports a safe no-fly zone in Syria must admit that U.S. coalition ground air troops are needed to enforce.
Yes.
That's a statement directed at Hillary Clinton, who now supports a no-fly zone. The president opposes a no-fly zone, at least for now.
It was a statement directed at all of our presidential candidates because as they are asked these questions and are taking positions on them, I think it's important for the American people to understand exactly what those positions mean. People are calling them different things, a no-fly zone or a safe zone, but for those who are pushing for this, they've got to be held accountable for the decision they're making, that this will require U.S. air assets to enforce it. It will require U.S. air assets to take out anti-aircraft missile defense systems, for example, that the Syrian government has. And again, that puts us into a direct head-to-head conflict with a sovereign government, the government of Syria, and with Russia and their allies, and will also require a very large amount of ground troops on the ground to enforce this. There are a slew of other issues with this and why I think a no-fly zone would be a terrible mistake.
Yeah, and I know you're obviously very concerned about what happened in Libya, getting rid of Gaddafi. The current situation there is...
The same thing will happen all over again.
It's a disaster in Libya right now. All right, stand by. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. We're going to have much more right after this. We're following Russia's escalating air war in Syria with 60 airstrikes reported in the last 24 hours alone. Russia claims they're against ISIS and other terrorist targets, but the U.S. believes they're primarily targeting rebel forces fighting the government of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. We're back with Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. She's a member of the Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee and Iraq War combat veteran at the same time. Does it not concern you that Bashar al-Assad's regime has been brutal, killing at least 200,000, maybe 300,000 of its own people with these barrel bombs, and all these reports of hundreds of thousands of people who have been left homeless, billions, in fact, refugees. And the U.S. is obviously, so many other international powers are so upset about that and want to get rid of him as a result of what he's been doing to his own people over the past 4 years.
Yeah, well, if it concerns me deeply to see this tremendous and tragic human suffering, I think it's important for leaders of the world, leaders here in the United States, to look at this issue, though, and say, okay, if you do in Syria what happened in Libya, what happened in Iraq, because the same things that are being said about Assad right now were said about Gaddafi. They were said about Saddam Hussein by those who were advocating for the U.S. to go in and intervene, to overthrow those regimes and those dictators. The fact is that if that happens here in Syria, as U.S. leaders and others are advocating for, we will end up with a situation far worse than we're seeing today. We'll end up in a situation with far greater human suffering, with far greater persecution of religious minorities and Christians in Syria, and our enemy will be far stronger. They will take over the entire country of Syria. They will have greater weapons and capabilities and present a greater threat not only to the people in the region, but to the world.
What you're saying is that the Russian military involvement on the air, on the ground, the Iranian involvement in Syria right now, the Hezbollah involvement, they're actually doing the U.S. a favor.
They are working towards defeating our common enemy. When you look at the groups that are on the ground there, the most effective fighting groups who are fighting to overthrow this government, the Syrian government of Assad, they are predominantly ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, and these other Islamic extremist groups. They make up the vast majority of these so-called Syrian rebels. They are the most effective force who has gained the most territory. So the people who they're attacking in the Russians are dropping bombs are these Al-Qaeda, people who are our enemy, people who attacked us on 9/11.
So you're basically saying you don't want your fellow soldiers, and you're a member of the Hawaii National Guard. You just were promoted from captain to major. You served in Iraq. You don't want the men and women of the U.S. military on the ground in any of those areas. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, there's no reason for them to go and be deployed to these situations. I think it's important for us, first and foremost, to recognize, A, who our enemy is, and B, what our mission is. Our mission is to defeat our enemy, not to take action that's counterproductive to that mission and help our enemy get stronger. It's a very simple premise, and I think it's important for us to focus on that.
I was really concerned when you mentioned to me the other day you were surfing in Hawaii and you got hit by the surfboard. What happened?
I was out surfing at one of my favorite spots early in the morning, and there was a guy who had a big longboard, and he wasn't wearing a leash, so he caught a set wave. He bailed on the wave, and the board came flying in my direction and unfortunately hit me in the face. But got a little bloody, nothing broken, everything's fine.
You look like you're okay right now.
I'm okay.
Any permanent injuries?
No, it's a little tender, but nothing permanent.
Still, but it'll heal.
Yeah.
Well, you look good.
Thanks for asking.
All right, good. I'm glad you're okay.
Thanks
very much, Congressman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii.
An Iraq War veteran and Democratic representative from that great state of Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard, joins us. Nice to see you.
Aloha, Greta.
Aloha. So why won't the president say Islamic extremism?
Oh, the first thing I think we've got to understand that this is not just about words. It's not just about semantics. It's really about having a real true understanding of who our enemy is and how important that is, that we have to understand what their motivation is and what their ideology. It's this radical Islamic ideology that's fueling them. Just a couple days ago, Secretary Kerry said in a speech that ISIS and Al-Qaeda are engaging in, quote, criminal conduct rooted in alienation, poverty, thrill-seeking, and other factors. Now, if we really look at what he's saying, and if that's really the cause, then the solution would be just to give them a trophy, give them a hug, give them a good-paying job, $10,000, and a skateboard, so they can go and get their thrills and say, okay, great, they're going to be happy and they won't be fighting anymore. That's not the case. Unfortunately, we have people who are living in poverty all around the world, people who have this same feeling of alienation from their government, but they're not terrorists. So we've got to look at what their ideology is and how that's fueling these tragic attacks that keep occurring.
All right. Do you think that your strong view on this is because you actually went to Iraq and you've actually seen it? I mean, the rest of us, including President Obama, Secretary Kerry, were sort of on the sidelines looking at it. You were actually there.
Yes, it does. And it comes from experiencing not only the culture, myself personally, but also seeing the incredibly high cost of war, seeing friends of mine who did not make it home, people who I served with in Iraq, and unfortunately the countless other lives who sacrificed and paid that ultimate price.
So do you think when the president won't say Islamic extremism that he doesn't really know who the enemy is? Is that it? There he has. I mean, I don't get this one.
Well, I think, in my opinion, it really is not recognizing that Islamic extremism is the enemy, and we can see that through their actions, through the decisions that this administration has made, and Libya is a perfect example, where if you don't know who your enemy is, you end up going to war with people who are not your enemy. In Libya, we had a situation where Gaddafi was taken out. We attacked Libya, and we look now, rather than eliminating our enemy, these Islamic extremists, they're stronger there now than they were before. And there are other examples. We look at the proposed attacks on Syria that occurred just over a year ago. Again, we're dealing with a situation where this is not our enemy. This is not the people who are threatening the American people.
So it really, so this isn't just a spat between a lot of Republicans, and of course you share the view, the word game. This is a real problem, a real failure to confront who the enemy is.
It's a real problem because of a very simple reason, actually, and that is something I learned as military 101, but something that's easy for everyone to understand, and that is if you are at war, which we are, you have to know who your enemy is in order to defeat them. You've got to recognize what's fueling them, what's motivating them, what are their strategies and tactics that they're using in order to be able to defeat them and prevent them from attacking the American people.
Congresswoman, nice to see you, and of course, thank you for your service, because like I said, you were there, the rest of us weren't. Thank you.
Thank you, Greta. Aloha.
Hey, it's Jordan with TYT and TYT Politics. I am out here with Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who gave a really impassioned floor speech the other day. You're one of the leaders in Congress, you, Senator Sanders, a couple other progressives who have, frankly, given a damn about this situation. I wanted to ask you, obviously this is about water and land. The bigger picture here, what do you think is at stake when you're looking at the violence that has gone on and the desecration of land and these types of things?
There are a lot of issues at stake here. In my meeting with the chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, in meeting with so many of the people here, what I have heard from them and the reason why I'm here is to help bring attention to the cause of water protection. That is what is at stake, and it is not just protecting the water in this location for these people. That is critical and it is important, but it is also a symbol of the need for us as a country and people around the world to recognize this precious resource that is water, which equals life. Without it, there is nothing else that we can do. And that is the big picture. That is what is at stake here.
And you look at, I mean, you served, you're a veteran, the president, Congress, they're all supposed to protect against foreign and domestic enemies. I mean, this is my 5th time here. I've seen directly, people getting shot in the face, point blank range, unarmed people by police, grenades, mace, pepper spray, it goes on. People getting arrested without getting their rights read, all sorts of things. And there seems to be no consequences. It's almost like North Dakota has seceded from the U.S. What do you think about the situation here? What needs to be done? Because by and large, there's more cameras here now, but the media has not been reporting what's actually going on here.
Yeah, it's such a twisted sense of priorities. Again, the people who are gathered here peacefully to take a stand for protecting our water. There have been a lot of other distractions and a lot of other issues that have been raised, and the leadership has not taken appropriate action to make sure that our First Amendment rights collectively are protected and honored, and we've seen what the results of that has been, unfortunately, with people getting hurt unnecessarily. This is, again, where all of our veterans who have gathered here have a great opportunity to help uplift the peaceful voices of those who have been here for so long, to lift the voices of the Standing Rock Sioux, to say we are gathered here to speak as one voice to protect our water. This is not a political issue, it's not a partisan issue, it's not an us versus them issue, it is a life issue. And the more that we can bring focus and attention to that, taking that high road, focusing on that most critical message that's important to all people and all living beings and our planet, I believe that message can penetrate and we can bring about change. That this is not just something that's happening in North Dakota, this is not just an isolated incident, that we as a people, all people, must stand together and not pit one side against the other, not say that this is a choice for our country between the economy and jobs versus water. It's about doing things right, as we say in Hawaii, in a way that is pono, in a way that is proper, so that we are doing what is right for the people. And by building a pipeline just 6 feet below a major water source, not only for the people in this region, but millions of people in the surrounding area, with the not even a question of if, but when there are problems with that pipeline, when it has a spill or a leak or a problem, the damage will be so far-reaching. It will not be a question of, well, how much will it cost to clean it up? How much will it cost to correct this? That is out of the question. I think one of the things that has not been covered enough is the Energy Transfer company that's building this pipeline has a $25 million insurance policy. Again, not if, but when something goes wrong with this, where do you think they're going to be? Where do you think their $25 million is going to be? And that is a drop in the bucket to the billions, if not trillions of dollars that it'll cost to try to clean up such a mess and to try to bring water and life back to these people in this place.
It's also interesting that the CEO is building the biggest wind farm in the Caribbean right now. So obviously he knows the power of wind, just not in America. Lastly, I wanted to ask you, other than the pipeline, I think this story has really brought to light the disregard of treaties, the disregard of native sovereignty, the continued oppression of Native Americans. Frankly, I knew my history, but I wasn't actively thinking about it before this. Most people weren't. Can you kind of talk about what comes next after the pipeline, because it's not like these issues oppressing Native Americans just go away?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the positive things that has already come about because of this. Again, I had the chance to meet with the Chairman Archambault yesterday, and that's what he shared, that whatever the outcome of this is, he already feels like there has been victory, that more people are paying attention to indigenous rights and the challenges that have been placed upon indigenous peoples in Indian country and in other places, and that by more people paying attention and causing this desire to learn more, it will then hopefully continue to spur action and energy towards accountability and a change in laws and a change in policy, so that we are honoring the people, the first people of this land.
Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the clips of Tulsi Gabbard, who, in many people's opinion, very likely deserves to be President of the United States. I'm seeing a lot of people who are writing in response to the various YouTube clips that people are putting on the internet, and the response is virtually uniformly positive and enthusiastic about her views, her personality, her honesty, her ethics. She is absolutely getting top reviews everywhere she appears. This is absolutely amazing. And again, certain establishment types are very, very concerned. Some of the left-wing commentators are worried about her. They're calling her a dissident. She doesn't stay on the reservation. She doesn't toe the party line for the Democrats. So this makes her an independent person, a clear, independent thinker. This is what we need for this country. And I think if she were to run for president in 4 years, I would probably vote for her unless she changes her views quite a bit. But basically, that is my offering to the viewers out there. I hope you enjoy it, and it's very positive. And so I hope you appreciate this and enjoy it, and have a wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. See you next year.